Any other member of the public that would like to speak on this item? Yes, sir.
How you doing, Mr. Mayor, City Council?
Would you state your name and
John
address?
Mitchell. I'm a professional manager of nightclubs. And the question I have is, in my own dealings, with dealing with some of the nightclubs that I've worked at, I've had incidents where I've been charged by the police department. And to continue on with my work, is that held against a manager? If anybody else wanted to hire a manager, because I had to move people out of the nightclubs at force without a choice. And I know some of the other associates I know have been through the same thing. And I'd just like for the city council to look at that, because I am not a criminal. I run a youth program, but that was my job. And sometimes you can't walk away from these people because they will catch you in your walk away. And as far as the police know, all they know is a person went down there and swore out a warrant and said, you assaulted me. That warrant is going to be followed through by the magistrate and the police department. Just wanted to look at that.
May I ask a question? I don't mean to inquire into your past, but you brought the issue up. Were you charged or were you convicted?
I was charged, and the person never showed up to court, but it's still on my record.
Okay. So this specifically says conviction.
Okay. So if you're not convicted, it doesn't.
Okay, well, I appreciate me not being convicted, but I'm just saying that for some of the owners that were, just to bring to attention to the city council and the police department. Thank you. 534 West Thomas Street.
Yes, sir.
My question is addressing owners and operators. If somebody leaves the club and create disturbances, this gentleman was talking about at the middle of the night, what we're supposed to do? How you gonna hold the club operator? He has a responsibility to keep his clients quiet and in line if he can. But how you gonna charge this person with the left club and went down the street blowing the horn? Okay? How is that your responsibility? But my greatest concern is those of us out here in this public. We're more confused now than we were started. We don't know what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do. We're more concerned, just tell us what we're supposed to do. I'm not concerned about the owner and the operator, what we the public supposed to do.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Any other member of the public?
My question is,
Name,
Zanir Wiggins, 1001 Moore Street. My question is, if you start saying that you're looking at the background of club owners, what about other business owners? How fair is that going to be if you're going to look at the club owners and say, if they have these convictions, what about other people who want to bring businesses here?
Any other members of the public that would like to speak on this item? Yes.
Are you going to answer that question?
Councilmember Blackwell.
Question needs to be answered.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wiggins. My assumption is that the reason we are even looking at this is because we've had, from this sector in business, lots of complaints, deaths that have occurred in the proximity of the businesses who are operating around the businesses. Number of complaints from many sides of the city. And so it's incumbent upon us to figure out what we can do, because we haven't been able to do anything up until this time to regulate and mitigate the issue of people having a good time, which is people's right to have but in a safe manner, which is also people's right to be able to live where they have a good time. You don't want to die trying to have a good time. And so I think that this is the council's best attempt working with club owners. I think this might be a little different than how many of the ordinances that we create are brought to bear, that we tried to work for almost a year, with something that strikes some balance without imposing too many restrictions, but at the same time enough to protect the community and the people who do attend. And I think that's the rationale. I don't know if I'm correct in my summary, but I think that's the rationale.
Councilmember Wiggins?
Yeah, and I think that would be a correct rationale. And by way of background, when we initially started discussing this, it came about as a result of certain incidents that occurred at a certain location on 301 where a residential neighborhood was impacted adversely by the activity that was emanating from a given location. And then after that, there were several other intervening incidents that came about, including one that resulted in the loss of life and other intervening occurrences where there were serious injuries at the locations that come under this definition of bars, taverns, and nightclubs. And I think the question was, why are they treated differently? And the issue becomes is that we have a circumstance that was presented to us as elected officials that we were asked to address by the community at large. And this is our effort to do this. And as Councilmember Blackwell indicated, it's in the interest of public safety, but also to bring a balance to the fact that we know and understand that certain individuals and entities that come within the definitions of bars, taverns, and nightclubs have the right to operate. But there has to be a balance there. There has to be a certain level of accountability and responsibility that, based on these occurrences, seemingly was not in place.
Any other member of the public?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Ollie.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. My name is Tammy Phillips. I live at 1 Club Norland. My question is simple. I do appreciate and realize and understand that something needs to be done. From my understanding, this is my first meeting. You're saying that individuals that hold a felony, so it's not so much doing the background check, it's felonies, they can't get the license. Being a person that has patroned at nightclubs, I don't think the issue was the nightclub owner himself, even though he should have taken responsibility. It was the clientele of the nightclub. So I'm trying to understand, what does that nightclub owner holding a felony has to do with the type of patrons that come into his club?
And the issue of the felony and the felony or the other misdemeanor convictions is just one part of the ordinance. It has a scheme and a framework in place. And what it does is, in a lot of instances where there were occurrences that would take place, there would be intervention by law enforcement and either by other administrative bodies. But you would go to a certain location and you couldn't find anyone who would acknowledge that they were in control or that they were the manager. And then you had a situation where really there was no one there to, you didn't even have the licensee in place. So there was no one that law enforcement or the administrative bodies, and when I say administrative bodies, I'm not just talking about city administrative bodies, but we're also talking about from the standpoint of the state administrative bodies, from the standpoint of ALE, where they were intervening alcohol law enforcement violations that they were attempting to put in place. So what this does is it just puts in a framework of responsibility. It says that you have to have a manager in place. It says that someone who is going to be in control of gangs, such as a manager, has to be in place. It says that you have to have certain things in place, such as a violence reduction plan, which is what we're going to put in place. under the auspices of our police department. You have to have a diagram of the particular location. It puts things in place that gives us the ability from a public safety standpoint to better monitor these particular types of locations in hopes that we will see better management and curtail some of the activities that have taken place in some of the locations within this city.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other member of the public?
Excuse me, my name is Thomas Benson. I live 2834 Seven Bridges Road, Brattleboro. I own 2 nightclubs in town, Baby Dolls Cabaret and Nightlight Bar and Grill. And I apologize, well, I might get too close to the microphone. Anyway, I'll try to get it right. My only concern is I wasn't able to come to the other meetings that the club owners had because they were in the morning, and I operate 2 clubs and I actually manage them myself, or I'm there. I obviously can't be at both of them at the same time, but that's part of the reason I wasn't able to come in the mornings. We will try to be brief. I commend the council for trying to solve this problem because it's obviously has been a problem in the past. It's been a lot written about it in the paper. There's obviously when people start dying in nightclubs and getting a lot of bodily injuries, something has to be done. My concern is that this ordinance might be slightly strict, or maybe not so slightly strict on the club owners, like I feel myself, that haven't had any violence, haven't had any problems. It adds to the hoops I've got to jump through, so to speak. And I'm already trying to manage 2 at one time and have a pretty tight schedule. That's a concern for me. Also, there are restaurants in town who have liquor license and beer license. Now, I understand, my problem is the fairness of making bars, because I'm a private club. One of my clubs is a private club. I sell food. I don't sell enough food to be considered a restaurant, but I do sell food. But there are other clubs that are, well, they're restaurants, but they sell food. Are the managers of those restaurants or the bar managers of those restaurants going to be held accountable in the same way that, say, my bar is, because he sells more than 30% food, I sell less than 30% food? Because the restaurants have bars. If, say, several bars here in town or nightclubs go out of business, which is I might agree that there's some of them that need to be out of business, but that's not up to me to decide.
You got about 30 seconds.
Okay. Are they going to be held to the same accountability as far as the felony convictions if they're going to manage a restaurant? And suppose a competitor, and one of my competitors has it out for me, he wants my business,
Right.
and he sends somebody in to start trouble, starts fights, and then I start having a lot of trouble because of not anything of my own, but because a competitor is, wants to get me in trouble and wants my business.
That's a good point.